Hi, Matt.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. So I've twisted your arm to do this episode.
Yeah, go on. What are we talking about?
Because I've got an idea for it. So one of the podcasts that I absolutely love, because I'm a geek, is called Football Cliches, where they talk about the language of football and the use of like cliched sayings in football and all that sort of stuff. There's a guy who runs it, Adam Hurrey, and he's written several books about it, and it's incredibly geeky, but it's good to listen to. So I'm going to try and emulate that. So this is inspired by that content. So if Adam Hurrey's watching this is a homage to his content.
This is your fault, Adam.
Yeah. But I would love to do it in the space of wellbeing in the workplace, because I think there's lots of language around workplace wellbeing. Some of it's interesting, some of it's ridiculous. I've got a few ideas that I thought I could run past you today. Yeah. And we could just have a bit of a chat about it.
So what we're talking about, like, I don't know, self-care, that kind of thing.
Self-care, yeah. Well, let's start there. How do you feel about self-care?
Self-care.
As a concept.
Do you know what? It gets a bad rap, doesn't it?
In what way?
A bit. So, well, just the language. I feel like people say self-care and they sort of, feel a little bit
like soft and fluffy.
Yeah, soft and fluffy, and maybe a bit, what's the word? Self-focused.
Oh, yeah. Selfish.
Right. Selfish, yeah. But look, when you break down what it is, it's obviously really vital in the picture of looking after our well-being, whether we're talking about work context or at home. So, yeah, let's bring back the self-care positivity.
The thing is, I feel like you're being far too serious about this, because I agree. And I've got a whole list of things here, and I think you could make that same argument that they're all important and they're all worthy and all the rest of it. I just don't like the language, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you another example. So work-life balance.
Yeah.
So you could argue incredibly important, all the rest of it. We need to protect our lives outside of work and all that sort of thing. But work-life balance, ridiculous.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm with you. Why is it ridiculous? Because it's really hard to get.
Because it's impossible.
Yeah,
because you don't balance them. It's not, especially nowadays with devices and all the rest of it, you do not have here's me at work and then here's me at home and I'm balancing the two. I just don't like the analogy. But then I don't like work-life integration either, so I don't know what I like.
Yeah, and I suppose, it does a job, doesn't it? It's got a role, like a bit like all of these bits of language do, around articulating something for us, to help us think about something. But there is, that fact that when you hear some of these things, work-life balance, self-care, perhaps there's a bit of a roll of the eyes, like, what do they mean? What are they looking for?
Yeah.
Is it a get out?
So you're going a bit more philosophical.
Sorry, I can't help myself. No, okay. All right, work-life balance. Do you have it?
Work-life balance?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. So yes and no. So absolutely, I don't balance them like a set of scales and I'm on one, I'm on the other, because I'm self-employed and they run into one another. But absolutely yes, because I'm happy with the amount that I work. So yeah, you could say that I've got a good work-life balance.
Yeah.
But I would never describe it as a balance. I'd describe it as just
your life.
My life.
Yeah. I suppose if we are to get a little bit more philosophical about it, perhaps we could remove the language and the use of it by just enjoying our work more, and work in itself being, less harmful to our stress levels and our nervous systems, and then therefore we don't really need it. It sort of suggests that there's work and there's life, and that they're not the same thing. Yeah. But if we, as I said, be more philosophical about it, can we somehow just have life?
Yeah. Well,
in it is work.
You want to talk about language, like work, that infers that it's hard, right? Because work is hard.
Yeah.
But actually, what you're saying is work doesn't need to be hard. But if you enjoy what you do and there's a purpose and all the rest of it, like...
Well, yeah, that opens a whole can of worms, doesn't it? Because I had a conversation with someone the other day who perhaps have slightly traditional, they work in professional services, so they've got quite traditional values around what work is and a job. Now, for me, work is doing the thing that I'm passionate about and that I'm trained and qualified to do, in exchange for some financial reward, which enables me to, pay the bills. And if that takes me 2 hours a day, because that's how I've crafted work. By the way, that's not where we're at, but that would be nice.
No wonder I'm so busy.
You're doing all the work. But then that is still work and still really valid. Yeah. Just because you go and show up in an office for 8 hours that isn't earning work. So there is a real kind of question around what work is and isn't. Because, who wouldn't want to try and get their work done in 2 hours a day and still get their full salary? As long as you were delivering what you're supposed to be delivering.
Outcome based.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Can I throw another word at you?
Go on.
This might be a bit closer to your heart.
Next one.
Wellness.
Ooh.
I hate wellness. The first thing that jumps to my head immediately is that it's very American. Like, does wellness mean well-being in America? It doesn't mean the same over here, right? I think they're different things. Wellness for me is more, I don't know how to describe it. It's like it's more fitness, right? It's fitness. It's more physical health, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Whereas well-being, certainly in the world that we live in, encompasses so many other different things, like pressures in the workplace and all this sort of thing.
Yeah. Wellness is activities, right? Going and doing things, whether it could be physical, you're right, but it could also be about mental health, but they're activities.
Yeah.
When we're talking about well-being, we're talking about our beings, human beings, and our health, our state of health. I'm with you. I use the word many, many times a day. I know what I mean by it, so it's okay. But I get you. I can see that people see that pop up, and again, the eye rolling comes out, and skepticism.
I'm being overly provocative. I don't really hate wellness. I've got no real problem with it, but it's just funny, isn't it? I'm fascinated by the language of it. Wellness, well-being. Like just the difference, and one of the other ones that I was thinking about when I was thinking about this in a slightly different context was just how you can call the same thing lots of different words. So HR, for example, is an area that we work very closely with. But HR, what's that called? Like that used to be called personnel, back in the day.
Yeah, personnel.
What do you come across like people and culture and talent management and this and that and the other? Don't get me started on ESG and CSR. I don't really know what the difference is.
Social impact.
But
okay, so we've come to a place with all of these really important things where it's actually all got a little bit confused. And different organisations are in different places. I'd completely forgotten about personnel. That was even a module at uni when I studied business studies. I guess it must be really confusing for the people who are actually doing those jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe they know what they're doing, but out there in the sphere, I guess I definitely would see HR as the nuts and bolts and the formalities of things, the big dogs.
Okay.
And then you've got some of these other titles and descriptions that might actually just kind of be looking at a certain slice of it. Like, talent management is very much to do with, the resources in the business and the recruitment and the retention of it. Less concerned with, say, culture.
Yes.
Or employee experience. But they work together. But it's a minefield.
Yeah, it is a minefield. There's definitely something that we must be guilty of this because we work in this space that we're desperate to create new words for things that aren't necessarily new. Like I hear that I see that all the time. There's researchers that talk about this. That basically when we talk about well-being, employee engagement, employee experience, all these things, it's basically job satisfaction.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's job satisfaction. How satisfied are you in your role? And there are, look, I'm saying that, and I really want to argue that well-being's different because we work in well-being, and I do think it is a little bit different. But it's interesting that you've got to read between the lines in terms of what language is useful in terms of catching people's attention. Because something like employee experience, you could argue, what harm does it do? You know, having a new word, sure, it might just mean it's the same old stuff repackaged, but if it then creates a bit of a trend and then people are interested in it and it leads to the ultimate outcome that you talked about before, people enjoying their jobs, does it really matter?
Yeah.
But then you could argue it does matter because
Yeah.
we're just renaming something over and over. And would you do that? I always try and think, would you do that in other parts of the business world? Like, do finance call the accounts something different? You know?
Money champions.
Exactly.
Bring back the money champions. Where's the team that give pay rises?
Yeah, bring them back.
I guess, I mean, that's employee experience. I guess maybe some of that is a bit reflective of the organisation. Like, I've just been speaking with an organisation where they are transitioning from, you know, wellbeing champions and the wellbeing team to employee experience. And, you know, they're big, lots of different types of people in their workforce, from facilities management to clinicians. And, you know, maybe there's a need to reframe it to make it fit with the context of all of those different types of people. Perhaps if you've just got, you know, a little bit more of an organisation that's got a few, like, less diversity in the types of roles, maybe you could just stick with staff wellness and not worry too much about the description of that.
Yes. Said staff there. That's another word.
Staff, yeah.
You don't have to
Well,
call
that's
people staff now,
I mean, people, colleagues, yeah, staff.
People. Are we allowed to call them people? Humans. Yeah.
Human capital. Yeah, I mean.
Human capital.
Yeah, people talk about human capital, don't they?
Yeah, I'm just imagining you calling a person like, "Hello, human capital."
Yeah, and that's probably not a good idea. But it is a bit like, you know, what are we talking about here? We're talking about the human aspect of humans and people in an organisation. They're one of the resources of the organisation, right? But then actually they're humans.
Yes.
So it's choosing the correct way to talk about them and everything that's associated with them.
Got you. I'm going to finish with a geeky one, but one that's like an absolute bee in my bonnet. So, psychological safety. Amy Edmondson, I wish she'd not called it that, right? Because, as you well know, I'm quite passionate about this idea of the management of psychosocial risk and ISO 45003 and all those cool things. So psychosocial risk, we talk about psychological health and safety and managing psychological well-being like you would do health and safety. And psychological safety just messes all that up. So psychological safety is it's people being able to take risks at work, ask a stupid question without the fear of negative repercussions, all these sorts of things. It's adjacent, it's related. You almost need psychological safety as part of your management of psychosocial risk. So it's absolutely there, but people just think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And if I say psychological health and safety, they immediately think of, oh, that's the ability to take risks.
Okay,
And,
but we're talking about two different
this
things.
is a very personal thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm bothered about psychological health and safety. But yeah, if she just called it something different, we need a new name for that.
I guess it's every organisation's in a different place, aren't they? With sort of like where they're getting to with this. Probably there's loads of organisations out there dealing with these issues and not understanding that's what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And getting confused themselves. Psychological harm. Where's that?
Oh, that's different. See, that's
something else.
Harm. So psychological harm, that's more psychological health and safety.
Put your hand up if you're confused.
That's psychological. That's psychosocial risk. So psychological harm occurs because the psychosocial hazards and have converted to risk for an individual. There you go then.
Yeah. Okay, so spell it out.
Different from psychological safety. Psychological safety, totally different, sort of.
And so if you're at risk of harm because of the work that you do, that's psychological health and safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although you could say if a workplace lacked psychological safety and you weren't able to speak your mind and you bottled things up and you thought you would be blamed if you made a mistake, that could be in itself a psychosocial risk, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess what we want to know is from the community is, what other lingo and words are confusing you? How do you feel about well-being? How do you feel about yoga?
Yeah, we weren't going to talk about it.
We weren't going to.
No, I love yoga. I do some yoga. You think I hate yoga? I love yoga.
We want to know what lingo you find interesting in this sphere of work.
Absolutely. And whether it even matters or I'm the only one who cares about it.
Well, I quite enjoyed talking about it.
Me too.
Thanks, Matt.
Let's do it again.